Here we go. Welcome back to my what I read each month. Can't believe it's already April. It's crazy. But I read 5 books. If you don't know this about me, I love reading. I do it all the time. So the first book I read this month was The UN Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I gave The UN Honeymooners 5 stars. I absolutely love this book. It is like an enemies to lovers kind of trope. It's about 2 twins, Amy and Olive. The main character is Olive. And Amy is getting married. Everyone at the party gets sick because they eat, I think it's shrimp, but Olive and Ethan, they don't eat the shrimp because they're picky eaters. Amy decides to send Olive and Ethan on the honeymoon together because why not? Ethan is the groom's brother, by the way. They go on this honeymoon. They're enemies. They hate each other, or they think they hate each other. Bada bing, bada boom. Some things happen. There's lots of plot twists, and she meets like her future boss on the cruise ship. Because her new boss is there, they have to pretend to be married. There's a giant plot twist with Amy, and I did not see it coming. I loved how she resolved the situation. She was just a badass. It just caught my heart. I absolutely love this book. There's so many funny things that happen. The whole time I read this, I was smiling. I give it 5 stars. Next book I read was Spanish Love Deception by Elena. This book is big everywhere, anywhere you go. And I bought it a long time ago. I finally picked it up and I gave it 2 stars. Oh, that's gonna get me like some hate, but I didn't love it. It is an enemies to lovers kind of. The story was both slow and fast at the same time. The main character, Catalina, her sister is getting married and she has no one to go with. It's in Spain. And Aaron comes up and he's like, hey, I'll go with you. They knew each other for like 2 years, were working together. She thought he hated her. He thought she hated him. So they kind of just kept their distance. But then, since the wedding happened, which they stayed in Spain for 3 days. 3 days. And a lot happened in the 3 days. I'm just going to give you a spoiler. They said, I love you. In 3 days. What the heck is happening? And they call each other baby, and it makes me want to rip my hair out and vomit. I cannot stand when couples say, hey baby. But it makes me cringe all over. It physically hurts me. I couldn't do it. If you personally love it, good for you. I personally don't. Oh God, I hope I don't get in trouble. Next book I read was November 9 by Colleen Hoover, and I have heard both good and mostly bad things about this book, but I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was pretty good. The only thing that made me from giving it a 5 was the end. The ending where everything is connected, I was just not wanting them to be together because it was just so interesting. The main characters, Fallon and Ben, meet in like a diner, and she's there having breakfast with her dad. She was in a fire when she was young, so she has like scars on her, I think it's her left side, and she's really insecure about them. So she's like arguing with her dad at breakfast, and Mr. Ben comes in and saves the day. He's like, hey, girlfriend, what's going on? She's like, who are you? So they pretend to be dating so the dad doesn't freak out or yell at her anymore. And then they spend the rest of the day together on November 9th, which is significant to each character. So she's moving away to New York, so it's not like they really have a chance together, but they hit it off right at the beginning. So they decide to meet every November 9th. For 5 years, and then they can start dating because Fallon's mom, who passed away, said you can't fall in love until you're like 25 or something. In the beginning, I was rooting for them. I just wanted them to be together, and things would happen where they couldn't be, and they had a lot of fights over like crazy, ridiculous stuff. I really liked the book goes between both of the perspectives of both Ben and Fallon, so you can kind of see into the minds of both people. Next book I read is absolutely the best one I read of the month, I think. Although UN Honeymooners is pretty up there. I read A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And this book I absolutely loved. This is book 1 of like a 7-book series, I think. I'm on the second one currently. It's pretty good. I gave this 5 stars. It is just so crazy. It's a fantasy with like little hints of romance with giant plot twists. I mean, I was never bored. Only thing is I could not pronounce any person's name in this book. So when I say the main characters' names, please bear with me because they are really hard. So the main character, Feyre, is that right? I kept saying Feyre, or I just started saying Faye because I don't know how to say her name. She lives with her 2 sisters and her dad in this kind of rundown home. They're out of money, and so she has to hunt and fight to feed their family. She really doesn't like hunting, but she does it just because no one else in her family will. Feyre is hunting. She sees a fairy. This like big monster dude kind of looking like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, like claws, fur, everything. So she kills this hairy beast because she hates the fairy because they are like really mean to humans or something. And then this guy Tamlin comes waltzing in to their house the next day, and he's like, "Hey Feyre, you killed my best bud. You can either right here or you can come back to my crib and live with me for the rest of your life." She decides to go with him to his gigantic mansion, kind of like enemies to lovers basically. There's a giant secret, there's a curse. Everyone in the fairylands has a mask, like a masquerade mask on, and Feyre is like, "What's happening?" Tamlin's talking about like some disease and he needs to fight it. And then there's like this mysterious woman. She's like really bad and she's killing mortals and fairies. And there are like really gruesome fighting scenes. At like one point her bone was out and some guy came and like twisted while it was out. Ooh, it made me hurt. She like got a broken nose. So there's lots of fighting scenes. It's a very violent book, but it's so freaking good. But I loved how they showed that the girl's strength is just as strong, if not stronger, than the guys. I love this book. I can already tell I'm going to love this series. I gave it 5 stars. Alright, now the last book I read this month, I literally finished a few hours ago, is called Normal People by Sally Rooney. And I actually watched the show on Hulu. I didn't even know it was a book when I watched the show. And I read it, and I gave it 3 stars. I like this book, but it was just exactly like the show. I was expecting there to be a few more like thoughts or more details, but everything is the same, which is fine. But it was kind of like I was rewatching the show, but in word form. But I just loved it because it was just so real. They go through things that everyone, if not most people, go through. So Marianne and Connell, they grow up together in high school, and Marianne's kind of like shy, but she has strong opinions, and Connell's like the popular kid. He's got a lot of friends, and his mom is the house cleaner for Marianne's family. So Connell goes over to her house all the time to pick up his mom and go home, but they start hooking up and it's crazy, and then something happens and they stop talking. But then they meet up again in college, and then something happens. They stop talking, and it just goes on and on. They really become best friends, and they just love each other no matter what. They just always find their way back to each other. I was so mad at the end because it doesn't even like close everything up. It leaves on like this massive cliffhanger where you're like, no, there should be like 6 more chapters, right? Where's the rest of the book? It ended and I just feel lost. I'm like, where are they now? I definitely think you should read it if you haven't watched the show. It is really good. But the only also weird thing is there's no quotation marks for like when someone's speaking. Is she speaking or is she thinking? I was very confused at the start, but then I got the hang of it like 100 pages in. Those are all of the books I read. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye!